All right, Pete. When you think about sieges, I'm sure you have a particular like siege in mind from media, right? And it's obviously, until we're on the same page here, it's obviously the siege of the zombies in World War Z attacking that city over the wall, right? Like they're like climbing up over the wall,
I watched
right?
it 2 days ago. Yeah.
Actually,
Yes.
oh, okay. That's not the siege. I was trying to make a joke here, and you're just like, yeah.
No, in preparation for this topic, I've reviewed all siege film and media.
Impressive. Okay. No, but in actuality, let's face it. What's the actual siege that we all think of?
It's got to be Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, the attack on Helm's Deep, right?
Helm's Deep.
That's it. Everyone knows
classic.
this one. Yeah, it's such a classic. Partially because, let's face it, a lot of D&D lore is based off Tolkien work and Lord of the Rings and everything. So that's a big part of it. But hey, welcome to TPK 101. I'm Goose. This is Pete. And we're talking about encounter design. And today we're talking about siege encounters. TPK 101 is brought to you by Pear Tree Studio, which Pete is from. Check out Pear Tree Studios. There's links down below to all the awesome adventures that Pete has designed. He is a A-class adventure designer, which is why we have him on the show to help us design some adventures, design some encounters. And today we're talking about sieges and how to do those. We talked about this. We're going to start with some mechanics and explaining how sieges would work in Savage Worlds, right? The main thing that we're going to use is the mass battle system. If you're using your core rulebook, this is on page 131. So if you want to open your textbooks to page 131, you can do so now.
Hold on.
Usually, if you were going to do a siege, you'd probably use the mass battles rule, and you would just adjust the time interval. If you look at the bottom of this page, it just say a standard mass battle would take 2 hours of hard fighting per round. But we're not doing a mass battle where we're out in a field having two armies fight. We are doing a siege of one tower, one place being attacked, one big city with walls and a fortress being attacked by another. And so their recommendation is that each round be 1 day, which gives your players a lot of time actually to figure out kind of things that they can do, right? Because one of the things that the mass battle wants to do is ensure that your player characters do have a way to contribute to the battle. That's an important thing. If your players can't contribute, what's the point, right? We need them to contribute. And so let's go over how this would work. At the start of the mass battle, so once the siege begins, you are giving each side force tokens depending on the strength and size of the army. And that's kind of up to the GM to decide what it is. If you have like two armies with their warriors being about equal level, so let's say one side has 10,000 and one side has 7,000, well, you just give 10 and 11 and 7. You always start with 10 for the stronger side and then adjust the weaker side by whatever amount that is. If you think they're half as strong, you give them 5. If you think they're as strong, you both give them 10. Usually you're going to be giving one side, especially usually the besieged side, because if the weaker side is attacking the stronger side at the castle, that just seems like a bad move, right?
Yes.
You're
basically assessing a reasonable handicap.
Yeah, exactly. So whatever that handicap is, figure that out, and you're going to award the tokens to each one. Next thing you're going to do is at the start of each round, we're going to talk about the actual battle part first, then we'll talk about how the player characters can influence that. But the start of each round, the player characters decide on their plan and how like the armies and the people in their side is going to handle the situation. And then you're going to award some bonuses as a GM depending on different things. The side with more force tokens gets a +1 bonus for just the advantage of having more forces or stronger force. Per difference. So if you have 7 and 10, the stronger side gets a +3, right? You get tactical advantages. You can get a +1 to a +4 based on any special circumstances that might be helpful, such as maybe
fortification.
Fortification, air superiority. Maybe you have fortifications, other conditions. Maybe anything that's going to be giving. Maybe the enemy side is weaker when it's raining, right? And you're going to give like, oh hey, it's maybe you roll a little die to find out if it's raining, and it's raining today. And okay, well, that side doesn't have as strong of an army this time. And then also just battle plan, right? If you think that you basically give a bonus 1 to 4 based on if one side has a particularly effective or clever battle plan. And again, all these bonuses are really kind of up to the GM to decide, but they communicate with your players about what's happening and decide on what bonuses each side should be getting based on that. The results are that if there's a draw, both sides lose the force token. And sorry, I'm not sure if I said this. The bonuses are applied to the commander's battle roll. So battle is a skill that almost. Have you ever seen someone with the battle skill?
Yes.
You have. Oh, okay. Well, you played a lot. You've probably played more convention games than I have.
I bet I have.
Yeah.
I've made characters in adventures that have the battle skill because I think it's an underrated skill on the skill lists, of core skills.
Well, now I will have to hear more about that at some point.
Sure.
Maybe during the show. But you roll battle. You apply those bonuses to each side. If there's a draw, each side loses 1 force token. If there's a success, the victor loses 1 force. The victor loses 1 force token. The defeated loses 2. So you still lose even if you win because you still take casualties. Your forces are
attrition.
Dwindling.
Yep.
Yeah. It's just that your other side lost more, right? And then a raise, the defeated army loses 2 force tokens, and you actually don't lose anything. When you lose force tokens, there's this thing called morale, where the leader rolls their spirit, modified by -1 for each force token lost. You get a +2 if the army is made up of mostly undead or other troops that aren't affected by, fear, essentially. So if the things are like fearless, you get a bonus, which makes sense, right? There's no fear of your army just going away. You get a +2 if your army is within fortifications or prepared positions, which in this case someone is. So someone's getting a +2, which means this battle is going to keep going probably longer than other kinds of battles would. And then you also get a +2 if the army cannot retreat or will be killed if it does. Basically saying, hey, fear is a good motivator for you not to run away. It's basically if you succeed on that roll, you're able to keep your troops in charge. Battle continues for another round. If you fail, the army is defeated, but conducts an orderly retreat. And if you quickly fail, everyone just flees the field. And who knows what's going to happen? People might be ridden down, killed. You may not be able, you may just be scattered temporarily or permanently. Some of them may be captured. Who knows? GM decides.
It's a complete rout.
Yeah. So when one side routes, retreats, or runs out of force tokens, the battle ends. And if it's important to determine the fate of named extras or other non-player characters, you can use the rules on page 96, which is like aftermath and extras. Where do player characters come in? Right? We've talked about the commander, right, which might be a player character.
Could be.
Hopefully is, but there's no guarantee. I would definitely prefer that it be a player character that's in charge at this point, but it may not be. It's definitely possible that it's just an important NPC that they are supporting, which just happens in fairly regularly in a lot of adventure, especially if you have something that's going on and it requires a certain skill or something that the player characters just don't have. I mean, your adventure, not spoilers for Shadows of the Sacred Hills, you do that where you have a character that is kind of leading a ritual, and all the player characters are supporting them. So it's very similar in that regard, where it's like it's something important's happening. It's going to be round after round after round after round. The player character has to do something to support that NPC. And if honestly, it kind of means that no one's stuck just doing the boring part, in my opinion.
Sure, and it's also important for the game master if you're going to say that a wildcard NPC has a significant role in the result of the PC's adventure, especially in a one-shot. It's my strong advice, because that can be a little risky. You could be risking some agency of the player
game
group, is to really give control of that wild card to them and say, look, this is what he's here and his motivations and what he's going to be doing, but you guys can make the rolls. You can decide whether to support or not support, disagree, agree, all of that, and sort of put it under their wing in terms of the execution.
Yeah, one of the things I like about Savage Worlds is that they basically tell you outright, like, allies should be controlled by the players when it comes to, roles, right? The players control them.
Right.
Now, obviously, as the GM, you have the complete power to just veto them trying to make them do something that's against their character, who they are as a character. And but
sure,
that's but otherwise, when it comes to
doesn't happen much.
No, I mean, not unless you have bad players.
The intent is there.
Yeah. But otherwise, yeah, I think it's important that, and I like that Savage Worlds just basically says this outright: give the control of the player of these allies to your characters. They should be in charge of them, and that should be true here. Additionally, like I said, I love rituals, I love dramatic tasks, and I love pretty much every subsystem in Savage Worlds. But in one sense, there is a sense I think that when you're the one in charge of a particular role, like battle, or if you're doing a ritual or some dramatic task that has one particular skill, often it can be boring because you may not be doing anything else. It's like you're just focused on this, and you're not getting to interact with the rest of the environment or the rest of things what's going on. And we can talk about that a little bit more. But
That's risky with a mass battle.
Yeah.
I do remember the first time I ran a mass battle, I felt that it was going the way of just sort of the same repetition of the same roles, and I had to improvise quickly to make sure after like maybe the second roll I could see like, oh, this is there's no variety here.
Right.
And it's not a failing of the subsystem. It was just a failing of my kind of imagination and understanding of how that was going to go.
Right.
I think if a siege is too static, the players will be bored. And if you look at the exciting sieges you've seen in literature and film, they are not static either.
Mm-hmm.
Something happens the first day, but something on the second day is really different. They come in with the battering ram that you didn't see on the first day, or something like that. So things change sometimes unexpectedly. They change the odds. They may change the force token calculations in some way. And it's important to keep things dynamic that way if you want it to be tense and sort of thrilling.
Yeah, and specifically, I'm thinking like in this case for the battles, we're talking about someone like the commander has to roll the battle skill, right? That's the thing that has to happen. The next part is if that is not the one of the players, and you put that role onto someone else, it means that now the players can use their characters to influence the outcome of the battle in some other way instead, right? So they can figure out in each round as you introduce these new dynamics, as you introduce different things that are happening during the battlefield, you can give them new ways to support that commander.
They don't have to be decisions or actions that are combat related. I think a lot of people think a siege is what's happening at the wall of the fort, and this enemy force is coming in, but it is equally as dependent on what's going on behind the wall and the motivations that are at play. I guess I'll go back to Lord of the Rings is an example of that. You have people lobbying the rulers behind the wall to make decisions, do things they don't want to do. This is stuff player characters, maybe even player characters that don't have a strong combat focus or battle skill or things like that are doing. To influence, basically to increase their odds. In that siege.
Going back to we're going to talk about mechanics and the rules here. What can the players do? Right. So obviously they can, as you said, they can support, and you can roll support with whatever skill your player feels appropriate for what they're trying to do. So I always ask, what are you doing? Not what not. I don't want to know what you're going to roll. I want to know what you're going to do. Then I'll tell you what to roll. Or we can have a discussion on what you should roll for that. And I might say, okay, that makes sense. Give me a persuasion. I'm like, oh, can I use performance instead? That's a pretty common thing I find a lot. And it's like, yeah, I can, either yes or depending on what you feel. And so that's a discussion. That's a back and forth discussion. And I think that's important to encourage that. But nonetheless, you make a decision as a GM, say, yep, okay, roll this. And then they can support based on their success. If they get a success, they get a +1 to that support, or they get success of their raise, they get +2. Now, in this particular scenario, or in this section, if you do like fighting, and they don't say this outright, they say like anything can be used, and this is the result. I would say personally that unless it's some sort of combat skill roll they're using, they don't get to have any of these battle effects. So you have this list of battle effects here. Says if you get a success, you get a +1. If you get a raise, you get to roll the battle effects table.
Right. Yep.
Or choose a +2. You take a +2 if you want. Or you can just choose the battle effects table. And I would say this battle effects table, though, is limited to only people who are using combat-focused abilities. Range attacks, throwing attacks, melee attacks, magic, something like that. There's a 2d6 roll you make on a 2, or so, snake eyes. You gain, your side regains a force token, which is good. This happens, and that's a one you get 4 seconds, another resource for attritions, but also that reduces the size of the difference between the two forces, meaning that that modifier that the other team's getting now is less, or that you're getting is more, depending on the situation. If you have 3 or 4, you get Terrorize, which says that you terrorize the enemy. The enemy commander now gets a -2 to their spirit roll if forced to test morale this round. So basically, if your side wins and you're forcing them to roll morale, they have a -2 now because they're scared of you. 5 to 9, most popular ones. The ones you're going to roll the most often, it's going to be the warrior support. It's Valor. The warrior support adds +2 to the commander's battle royal as usual. So nothing changes. You just still get your +2 as usual. 10 to 11, Slaughter. The foe reels at the champion's onslaught. Subtract 2 from the enemy commander's battle total. Now, I will say I'm not entirely sure the differences between a +2 for your side and a -2 for the enemy side. That one didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So there might be something else I'm missing there on like what the effects are. Because it's just an opposed roll. The last one, 12, so you get 6/6. And an army of 1. Tales will be told of songs sung of the warriors' epic feats this day. The enemy army loses a force token immediately, which doesn't subtract from the battle roll, but does cause a morale check even if he wins. So that's pretty cool.
Yep.
And and then it talks about ammo and power points, which we do not need to get into right now. Like I said, I would only do that for situations where you're using combat abilities to support. But I do think it's fun. It gets a lot of little narrative. But I think it's important to know that you don't have to use those. You can go use something else that's like encouraging your troops by going out and rolling persuasion. Or you can go give a performance to cheer up the crowd, increase morale. Go roll a performance roll, stuff like that. Or you can say, like you said, if you introduce different obstacles, you can that might be giving someone a bonus. You can say, okay, maybe you're not rolling support directly. Maybe you're going to go out and have an encounter that day and affect things, right? But anyways, that's the rules for mass battles, and then that's what I would say you should use overall, day to day. Like at the end of the day, you roll that mass battle roll for each commander, see the results, and move on to the next day and see what your players do. And basically, you kind of get these like scenes.
Yes.
You say, okay, day 1, what's your plan? Have you ever played? There's a game called Dust City Outlaws. Are you familiar at all?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. It's a tabletop role-playing game, and it's a heist game, right? So it's very simple. Like it's meant to be played as a one-shot. You get your faction card and your archetype card. You combine them, and that's what your character is, right?
Cool.
But the next part is that each character, there's different scenes. There's different like night and day cycles, and each character gets to determine a scene for that cycle. And so for me, what I would do in this situation for my players is say, hey, each of you gets to do one thing today. You get to declare one scene. People can join you or they can just watch. And you guys get to go do whatever that thing is. Maybe it's doing a quick skirmish to try to like remove some forces. Maybe it's or it's a support role. Maybe it's going and trying to sneak out to destroy any catapults, or maybe it's going to town to encourage some troops. That sort of thing. So that's my mechanics. Sorry, I was a little long-winded there. But yeah, that's how I would start there. So let's talk about like the actual design of the like the content of a siege, right? Where do we want to start?
Well, the first thing I would say is we referenced Tolkien and all things RPG sort of circle back to that at some point, but because of the great genre flexibility that we have with this particular game, sieges can be whatever we want them to be. They can be the giant, brick walled fantasy castles with the armies surrounding them. Certainly that's cool. It's classic. It's fun, but they can be modern sieges. I mean, we have military sieges today in the real world. They look much different and involve much more technology and are played out totally differently. And sieges, in my opinion, don't even have to always be on that grand a scale as full armies and things like that. You can have a convenience store being besieged by the living dead, and you are surrounded and inside and trying to figure out how to outlast or escape or survive. That's a siege in my mind as well.
I feel it's a reference to a movie, but I can't remember what movie it would be.
I'm sure it is. I mean, I didn't,
Yeah. Okay.
it came from somewhere into my brain. So, but yeah, so you get my point. First of all, make it what you want it to be, make it what your players want to play, fit it into your game. That's a great part about the system that we play is it can look like whatever you want it to look like.
Mhm.
The next thing I think if I were going to be setting up a siege adventure is I would definitely want the threats and complications to not be one dimensional. I would not want the only threat to be the threat outside the city wall. That to me is too flat, kind of too monotone, too easy for the players to say, "Oh, I get it." So every day the army's going to come try to put the ladder up the wall and get up here and we're going to try to knock the ladder back down. If we do better than them, then we win. That doesn't really, in my opinion, even allow the characters to really shine. I need things to be happening behind the wall as well that complicate things for the players, but also give them an opportunity to be heroic in between the scenes of fighting, which is what you were mentioning with mechanically how you were going to navigate that.
Mhm.
I think there's all sorts of psychology going on in a siege. People are panicked, they're trapped, the food or the water's running out.
Yeah, 100%.
The forces outside are far greater than the ones inside. Your back is against the wall. All these things are low hanging fruit to find ways that somebody inside is a bad actor and is going to open the basement tunnel for the strike force at midnight to sneak in. And
Oh.
this gives the opportunity to the players to thwart that, or to fall victim to that, or to plan their own activities that are going to influence the siege. So I think that's very important. I would try to be writing complications on both sides of the wall. Yeah, does that make sense?
No, yeah, 100%. Yeah. I didn't mention the food or water, the resource problem that sieges entail. But you also mentioned bad actors. There's someone is causing problems, or someone is letting people in. There's some sort of betrayal happening.
There's a trick, there's a lie, there's
Yeah,
something.
and
Troy,
that's something
right?
else.
I mean, Troy,
Yeah,
they were never going to get in. They were never going to besiege that city, right? They build the horse and they get in it, and they were dumb enough to let the horse in, and it changed the whole dynamic of the siege.
yeah, yeah. And so they can be more deceptive, which means that there is more things for your characters to get involved in if you also involve deception and sabotage, right? So subterfuge, yeah. It's only bound by your imagination's limitations. So in this case, Pete's
Yeah.
less bound than me, but
Yeah, I think that's important. The other thing I would say is that there should be some kind of clock. I think I always say this, like in maybe every episode that we've done. Like there
it's
should
like it's
be
like you have
some kind of clock pressure.
it's like you have a
Um,
formula or something.
yeah, it's almost like I just do the same thing every time.
Yeah. So before we get into like a clock pressure, would you say then that the force tokens are not the clock in themselves?
They are, because there's finite, they are a finite mechanical resource, I guess, and as they run out, bad things happen. I think what I would attach to that, were I to do it, were the real world consequences associated with it,
Mm.
and just always making sure we know what is at stake. What's at stake for the attackers? Why are they there? Why don't they go home?
Yeah.
So why is it they need this thing so bad that they're going to hurl, wave after wave at this target? There has to be a very, very strong reason for that to occur, or nobody's doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. So just an example, like one of the sieges I think of actually, I've been thinking of a lot, is the siege in Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn series. It's in book 2, where I can't remember the name of the town. That then it's the capital of the world essentially. But it gets
Oh
sieged.
yeah, I read this book.
Lithador, it's not that. It doesn't matter. Point being is that in that in that there's a siege, and the siege is happening because there is a special metal in somewhere. It's believed there's some sort of special metal that the previous ruler of this I'm trying to avoid spoilers. The previous ruler of this city had, and they're besieging this town because they want the town. They don't really care about the people inside. They just want the town and the resources inside. So that's their motivation. That's their like, if I can take over this town, I will become king of the world. And I'll have access to this metal that makes me king of the world.
Yeah, there has to be the right motivation. There's no reason to besiege a castle if there's nothing of value inside, or there's nothing of value in securing that for yourself if it is a strategic position or something like that. Yeah, that's got to be important. And on the other side, obviously, the first biggest motivation for the besieged is avoid annihilation, I guess, is the big one. But there can be other factors at play, because avoid annihilation is avoidable because you can give up, in most cases, and you can surrender. I guess depending on the extent of the evil of your attacker, you could probably surrender.
Zombies don't care if you surrender.
The zombies are not going to negotiate a peaceful exchange, of the quickie mart with you. But in many cases, that might be an option. So you have to have motivation on that side too. Why are we here? What do we believe in? Why are we helping defend this location or hold this location? And until when?
Yeah.
You can't do it forever. So, you can do it till the sun rises in the east on the third day or something, but you can't do it forever.
Yeah, and on top of that, like there is like with the force tokens, they're representing lives, right? They're representing like people dying. So if your heroes are heroic, they ideally are thinking, narratively about, hey, when we lose, there is death around us. And so you as a GM also should like think about narrating that. Think about how you're going to narrate losses of, potentially hundreds to thousands of people on your PC side, right? Especially
this is a very macro encounter. This is not, the PC in the dungeon, getting hands on. This is really has to affect the world that your players' characters inhabit in a big way.
Yeah, there's a big consequence for the world that the setting that they are in.
This will be a chapter in that world's history for sure.
And then on top of that, that also gives you, the GM plenty of opportunity now to also introduce NPC death for characters that they, if you want to, it's a particular NPC that maybe it's like the captain of one of the groups that is going out there fighting. Maybe they die in one of those encounters. One of those.
Certainly. There have to be. If there's no real risk, there's no value in doing all the work for the mass battle and planning the siege. There has to be, war is about loss. It has to be real for them. Yeah. The stakes have to be there.
So what else do you want to say?
What was I saying? Okay, yeah. So the clock. So the resources are the clock, but also in sieges, I was bringing up. I hope I get my Tolkien lore correct here, because somebody will totally nail me afterwards if I don't. But they were waiting for Gandalf to come and bring reinforcements. There can be clocks that are like, you have to hold out till sunrise, right? Because the vampires are not gonna continue this siege at sunrise, things like that. So maybe that doesn't fit right into the mass battle thing. I don't think you have to necessarily use mass battle to still have a siege situation. That's up to you. And in those cases, you would still need to apply a clock and time pressure somehow.
That's true. I now that you say that, I'm thinking of a situation where if it's just like 4 players in a quickie mart and trying to resist overnight, you could turn it into some sort of like dramatic task / quick encounter. So like, hey, you're going to have experienced 5 quick encounters. I don't want to, 5 waves of zombies over the night. You have things you can do in between to help your quick encounter roll. Yeah, stuff like that. If assuming you don't want to play out each fight individually. Some players are probably going to want to, but other players are probably like, no, we want to move through this. You can just use like quick encounters or dramatic tasks in some way to like get you through the night. If you got vampires or zombies or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way to do it. I think it's low stress, low bookkeeping, and still high pressure, high tension. There's still, in 5 dangerous quick encounters, there's going to be some probably character death or real close. Yeah,
Depending on what they do to help, give themselves an advantage in between time.
Yeah, and what surprises the GM has in store in between there, and what they come up with. They're going to come up with some crazy ideas along the way that are gonna influence that stuff. So that's a fine way to do it. I on anything smaller scale like that, I certainly would not try to force the mass battle mechanics down to that scale. I don't think that's going to be a rewarding experience. So I would do some sort of other hybrid organization there, whether it's dramatic task or quick encounter. Yeah. One thing I think I would want to be wary of writing sort of a traditional siege adventure would be if the story or the narrative is all about just breaking down the wall or breaking down the gate and getting in, then it's like the wall or the gate is like this character, that the focus is on, and that's not the PCs, and it's also not whoever the significant NPC leader of this force is. It's just this object that's in the way. I would like to make the wall, the barrier, the moat, whatever it is that is the dividing line. I would like to use that as a stage for the battle rather than it being the complete subject of the battle. This might just be a stylistic choice for me, but I would like it to come down to the attacker and the defender have to do damage to each other, and maybe there's opportunity for a big showdown between the hero on this side and the big bad captain on that side as well, and that there's real sort of cinematic stuff going on between fighting forces, and it's not just, well, they catapulted another boulder at the wall and it fell down a little more this round, and if it falls down some more, then everybody's going to run in. That to me is, I guess, we're talking about a big cliche here, but I guess it's even cliche for that, and a little bit just too flat.
Yeah, I think the way I would narratively I would do it says like during those days, the battle is going on all day.
It's raging in the background. You're narrating that, everything you're doing is amid the smoke and the sounds of battle and
then now and this is the setting in which you as the players need to go out and do something to help ensure that this doesn't, that all the death and everything you see around you isn't for nothing.
Yeah, your character decides they're going to sneak out through the drainage tunnel and, plant an explosive at the base of the siege tower. But they have to do it amidst the battle that is raging outside the wall and get back in undetected. And they've got to get through the dust and the blood and the bodies and the fighting and whatever, the horses, all of that stuff.
With everything in any role-playing game, I think it is important to work on your narration, work on your ability to narrate what's happening and express everything. I'll also say that don't feel free to, lean on your players for that narration as well. Just have them describe what's happening as well.
When you lean on your characters and you say, tell me what this looks like, you get so much, because what I get from that is, oh, this is how this player sitting right next to me is viewing this adventure that I've set up. And it is, could be completely different than maybe the image and the scene that I have in my head. It could be from a totally different angle, and you can get stuff from that will just enhance the way you present the narrative, because now I have a connection point with this player here because I see their focus and interest was on some particular senses that they were experiencing in the scene or something that they keyed in on because of their interests. And you can go around the table doing that, and you can pull the stuff you like, and you can de-emphasize the stuff that doesn't maybe click with you, and it really makes a better collaborative scene where you kind of think everybody's sort of thinking about the same scene after you've done that. So I ask all the time, please tell me what that looks like to your character. Some players jump on that, I think, a little bit more willingly than others. I think some players maybe don't see that question coming and have to kind of think about it for a minute. But most players, especially if it's something they're excited about, or if they've just rolled particularly well, they're very excited to tell you exactly how they just navigated that, acrobatic jump from this tower to that one and doing whatever they were doing.
Yeah. Going back to sieges then, what else do we need to talk about?
When you're using the mass battle stuff, you don't really have to talk about resources that much.
It's kind of assumed in the force token stuff.
Yeah, as your force dwindles, the resource, I guess, is assumingly dwindles at some connected ratio. But if you were going to do a smaller scale, more intimate siege, like we were talking about, if it was like a house surrounded by vampires or a convenience store surrounded by zombies, those types of things, resources is a thing that needs to be paid attention to. When does the power get cut at the quickie mark? And now you're in darkness, or is there, there's one shotgun kept under the counter by the shopkeep, and it's got 2 shells in it. Resources are going to become a thing really quick,
right?
In those situations. So have a way. I'm not saying there's one particular way to do it, but have a way to track that and have people know. I happen to have created a mechanic called cinematic resources. That's
really good.
Might work in some of these cases. If you don't know about it, check out the Iselion Hybrid. There's my shameless plug.
It's a good system. It's a very good system, I think, for creating some sort of drama around resource management without actually managing resources.
Yeah, if you don't want to do a lot of bookkeeping and you don't have time, I think that's a way to go. Do what your playgroup likes. If you guys want to track every bullet, I know people enjoy that. People do enjoy that tactical level. So if that's where you're at, just make sure you're doing it because you want the resources to matter.
Even my tactical group doesn't like tracking ammo. Yeah, check it out. It'll be linked down below for the Iselion Hybrid, and so where you can find this system. I mean, you should maybe even think about putting this into just its own document or something.
Yeah, because I have used it outside of that game several times now, so it is certainly independent of that adventure. That's just where it made its debut.
Yeah, we talked about this before we started. We're making an assumption here about sieges, and that is that the player characters are on the side of being besieged.
Of course they are, right?
Right. Okay. Well, let's flip the script. Let's say that your players are on the sieging side. They're the ones attacking the fortress for whatever reason. Maybe it's a castle full of vampires. Instead of the vampires attacking them, they're attacking a castle full of vampires. They're attacking Castle Dracula. And there is
sure.
Is there anything that you think we need to like kind of flip around when it comes to how we run encounters when the players are on the sieging side instead of the besieged side?
I think most of the same, not going to call them rules, but the same suggestions that we've just covered, guidelines, great, apply. Because the biggest thing I think is the stakes need to be very high.
Right.
Obviously, the stakes are very high. If you are surrounded by the enemy, your back is to the wall, your stakes are very high. But if you are the person doing the surrounding, the motivations behind that need to be just as high. Why are the players they've rounded up, they've chased their quarry to some last final holdout where they have them surrounded? Why aren't they done? Why don't they go home? What is it that they need? Do they need that valuable resource buried under the city, like your example? Is that they must have that to complete their quest? That's a possibility. Is one of their loved ones captive inside, and they're doing all of this as a rescue.
Yeah.
It has to be important.
Yeah, maybe you think even bigger. Maybe it's what's the people who are inside are doing something that you need to stop. Maybe maybe it's some sort of fantasy setting, and the big bad inside is casting a ritual that takes multiple days, right, to cast. But when this happens, it's going to summon, Cthulhu onto into the world, and he's going to destroy the world.
And that's
Um,
great because that also puts a clock on it.
yeah,
You've got 2 days to get in there and stop
yeah,
it.
so many days. Yeah, or maybe
After
it's
that, it doesn't matter.
maybe it's a little bit less. Maybe it's not fancy. Maybe it's modern day, and there's someone inside is working on a nuclear bomb or some sort of biochemical, bio bomb. I don't remember what those are called, but like biological bomb is something inside that's happening that they're working on. That if they finish what they're doing, it's going to destroy the world or
It's
kill
the
a lot of
same. Yeah,
people.
it's the
It's the
same
same
thing in
idea.
a different flavor.
Exactly.
They're still bringing some terrible evil into the world at some time here that's imminent.
And you can figure out how you want to flavor that based on each individual setting that you're doing, what's happening. It's a pretty standard tropey thing to do, right? Stop BBEG from doing X evil.
I think we have surrounded this topic. We have depleted its resources, and we have stormed its walls and conquered it.
Yeah. So that's Sieges. I don't think I don't think we got necessarily into the narrative, like or into like some of the things that we talked about in other previous videos, but I think we did talk about this in a way that's like important to basically focus on narrative and make sure there is something gripping your players, something that's narratively enjoyable for your players. And in the end, a lot of this is going to come down to, based on I think what we said, is going to be your narration, both your narration and the player's narration, and their creativeness and imagination. There is a very straightforward system for how to resolve these situations, but how your players go about handling it and how you go about handling it narratively can have a huge impact on how things happen inside the game. Which is one of the things I like about Savage Worlds is I feel like the narrativeness, the way you narrate things, just does such. It's the way you narrate things has a huge impact on the mechanics of the game.
It's also the memorable part of the player experience.
Hmm.
If you have smooth game mechanics that work really well, unfortunately, people forget about them because they work really well and they take a back seat to the narration and the drama of the adventure. So,
You see, unfortunately, I think that's a good thing.
Well, yeah, unfortunate for the brilliant game designers that all their hard work is forgotten about because the story was cool, right? So, but that's great. That's what we want at the end of the day. So, yeah, appeal to the five senses. Look at your cast of PCs, edges and hindrances. Put them in situations where they're going to lean on either one, and make it memorable.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us as we talked about sieges. If you have ideas for other types of encounters, or maybe you have a specific encounter you want us to look at, go ahead, drop us a link, email us, find us on social media. We're all over the place. Message one of us, and we'll be happy to take a look at it and think about, maybe we'll have it on the show. Maybe we'll talk about this as a full topic. So we're happy to hear it. If you're interested in either of Pete's current works, actually you have more works out now, but two of the works that I'm thinking of from Pear Tree Studios, you can check those links out down below for the Shadow over the Sacred Hills. The Shadows or Shadow? It's one Shadow, right?
Shadows of the Sacred Hills.
Shadows of the Sacred Hills.
Which is a Weird West adventure.
Yeah.
And I don't know the Iselion Hybrid, which is a sci-fi survival horror.
I own both of them, but I haven't ran the Iselion Hybrid yet. I have ran the Weird West one. So
great.
It was good. Awesome. Check those out. Also, you also released something else in collaboration with another creator recently.
Yes. Okay. Not a Pear Tree Studio thing. Can't take credit for that, but I was lucky enough and honored to recently write a one-shot for the Starbreaker setting by Star Anvil Studios. It is called Keys to the Kingdom. It just came out a week ago or less. Fun stuff. If you haven't checked out Starbreaker, I strongly recommend it. I am not paid to say this. It is just it's a great book, and it's got just what I would say is most impressive to me about it is the aside from the artwork, which is stunning in the whole book, is just the depth of lore and room within this setting for a game master to take almost any path of any type of adventure they want. They've put so much into Starbreaker. They've given you like a galaxy to play with.
Yeah, my physical copy is in the mail. It's coming from Drive Thru RPG right now, so I'm still waiting for my physical copy with the alternate cover on it, and then at some point we'll be getting Space Marine content soon from Star Anvil as well. So yeah, check out Starbreaker. Check out this Keys to the Kingdom one sheet from Pete through Star Anvil Studios. Just check all those things out, and
you can find that on Drive Thru.
Yep. Link will be down below. Thanks for joining us as we talked about Sieges. I hope this was really enjoyable for you. And if it offered you value, please leave a comment down below. Give us a thumbs up. And until next time, may your dice always ace.